The day's almost done. The streets are filling up with commuters. But in one area of Cambridge, there's no slowing down. We head out with police to witness a dark reality.
10-4. Picked up on Walnut Street. We're just trying to find him again. Full-size Ford F-150, that electric blue.
Sergeant John Van Breda and Detective Constable Graham Hawkins have been patrolling regional streets and dealing with the local sex trade for years. In Cambridge, they know many of the girls by name.
You'll be able to see cars just drive around the area. We actually call them sharks. So they're obviously men looking for the services of a prostitute. Is that it there?
The sex trade operates 24 hours a day, mainly, they say, in a concentrated area around Walnut and Wellington streets.
To see the 50 to 60 cars that just drive around, pulling over to the side of the road, that gives you a better feeling of how big the problem really is.
Unlike what's seen in the movies, high heels, short skirts, and lots of makeup are rarely found here.
I don't think a lot of them know what they're looking for because you know, the Pretty Woman movie kind of glamorized it.
Instead, the girls are wearing track pants, hoodies, and ratty jeans.
That's definitely one of them.
Police say the majority are trying to feed their own dangerous habit.
The ladies aren't down here by choice. They have major addiction issues, and they don't feel that there's any other way.
Oxy, cocaine, heroin. They're in so deep, it seems impossible to get out.
Okay, it's up at concession now.
These women are out there offering these services. There's the other spectrum is the Johns that are paying for it.
It's nothing for us to see a girl on a Friday night and to see her again on the Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon and she's got a black eye or a fat lip.
Tonight, police presence is high, yet girls like this one continue to vanish from sidewalks.
How much? How much?
The officers we're with are able to track down the truck they're looking for in a dark parking lot. Inside is a man in his 60s. There's a car seat in the back, and police are told the agreement was $40 for oral sex. This is just one incident in one neighborhood on one night. Police say keeping a close watch on all of the girls and busting up potential deals is a full-time job.
Yeah, they're breaking the law. It is a very difficult, labor-intensive, and a very expensive investigation. And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of the times it's even seen as a real criminal matter.
Tonight, Michael Rafferty found guilty of killing Tori Stafford.
For every little child in Canada that doesn't deserve what happened to her.
The jury reaches a decision convicting him on all 3 counts.
So Mr. Rafferty is obviously disappointed by the verdict.
Also, Tori's hometown reacts.
Justice is done.
Woodstock remembers the little girl that touched an entire city. Plus, the future of a convicted killer, what Rafferty now faces in a life behind bars.
CTV News at 11:30 with Rosie Del Campo.
Good evening. Guilty on all charges. The jury in the Michael Rafferty trial handed down its verdict tonight. Rafferty faced 3 charges. The jury convicted him on all of them. On the charge of first-degree murder, guilty. Sexual assault causing bodily harm, guilty. And kidnapping, guilty. It was a case that gripped the nation. A missing girl found murdered. 2 emotional trials, a guilty plea in one, and tonight a guilty verdict for the man accused. CTV's Joel Bowie has been covering this case from the beginning, and he was one of the few reporters in the courtroom when the verdict was handed down tonight. He joins us live from the courthouse in London. Joel.
Rosie, good evening. Tori Stafford went missing 1,130 days ago. Her disappearance and murder consumed many people's lives. A lot of them were here tonight, including the man who killed her. The verdict came at 9:25 p.m. Michael Rafferty stood in the prisoner's box. He took off his glasses and closed his eyes. He won't be eligible for parole for more than 25 years. There were immediate cheers outside of the courthouse tonight, but inside it was actually very solemn. Tori Stafford's family wept openly. The judge thanked the jury, saying, quote, "You did not rush to judgment, you took your time and arrived at a verdict that is amply supported by the evidence." This has been a very emotional ordeal for Tori Stafford's father, Rodney Stafford, particularly the last few days when he's really struggled with things. He came out of the courthouse tonight holding a photo of Tori. Here's what he had to say.
What was in your heart when you heard that?
Scream.
You heard those words, guilty.
I wanted to scream something in the courtroom, but we just couldn't do it. Happy, excitement, but at the same time there was a sense of loss because Tori's not coming home. But we got it. We got the justice.
Did you look at Rafferty when the verdict came?
Oh yeah, just same reaction he had all day, rolling his eye, blah blah blah, whatever. Good luck.
Sometimes good things come out of bad things. What good might come out of this?
Oh, a lot of good's already come out of it. There's already been changes to the Amber Alert. There's so many things that are still yet to come.
For sure. Do you think the jury will feel good about their decision once they see?
Oh, they're gonna be very amazed with their decision, knowing the information that wasn't able to be released. And it was all for this little girl right here. Not just Tori, but for every little child in Canada that doesn't deserve what happened to her.
Hey, Victoria!
Michael Rafferty's lawyer was actually one of the first to speak. He says he thinks his client did get a fair trial. The Crown just had a very strong case. Here is Dirk Durstein.
Mr. Rafferty is obviously disappointed by the verdict.
What was your reaction when you heard those 3 counts read out as guilty?
I don't know. It's always very hard to predict exactly what was in the mind of the jury. I don't think anybody in that courtroom knew exactly what was going to happen. So,
are you considering an appeal, Mr. Durstein?
Well, that's Mr. Rafferty's decision, and that'll be brought to him in due course.
Was he surprised at the verdict?
Surprised. It's certainly one of the verdicts that's available. I mean, if you have 3 choices, are you surprised by which one? I don't know.
Are you surprised the verdict came so quickly? Just essentially a full day of deliberation?
Yeah, a little bit more than the full day. I don't know. There were paths to conviction that would have taken an hour. So everything depended. I think that the jury thought long and hard about various different aspects about this. If they had if they just believed some aspects of the testimony right off the bat, they would have convicted within minutes. There are no cases where this is not a reasonable outcome, and it was quite a strong case for the Crown. I get asked that question more often than almost anything else. How can you do a case like this? How can you defend such a person? The reality of it is that everybody in our system deserves a strong, proper, and effective defense. I hope he got a fair trial. We didn't win on every one of our motions, but I mean, I think that many people within the context of this worked hard to make sure he did have a fair trial.
This was the largest police investigation in Ontario history, and tonight the police said they hoped that the decision would bring Tori's family closure. Here's Inspector Bill Renton.
Every member of this investigative team has been involved in this intensive and often emotional investigation, respects the decisions of the court and the difficult job of the jury in this matter. We appreciate their dedication to service. On behalf of myself and the entire investigative team, our thoughts and prayers are clearly with Tori's family and friends, that they may garner the inner strength to move forward in the memory of their beautiful child. Tori was truly our inspiration as we moved through the past 3 years.
The Woodstock police, who have faced some criticism in this case, have scheduled a news conference for tomorrow. Rosie?
Now, Joel, what's next for Michael Rafferty?
He still has to be sentenced. That is something that will happen in this courtroom, in this courthouse. It's scheduled for Tuesday. His conviction carries a maximum sentence of life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years, but the sentencing will still happen such that the family can read victim impact statements. So we expect to hear from Rodney Stafford, we expect to hear from Tara McDonald, maybe from Tori's brother Darren as well. So that is scheduled for Tuesday morning. It will happen again here in London, and we will be covering that. Rosie?
And finally, Joel, what about an appeal?
That really is the next step, and it's what a lot of people want to know tonight. Here's how the process will work. It is up to Michael Rafferty. His lawyer was asked earlier this evening. He says he hasn't discussed it with him, but the clock is ticking. He has 30 days, and we will know after that. Rosie?
CTV's Joel Bowie in London tonight. Thanks, Joel. Megan Furman is up next. She's in Tori's hometown, Woodstock. Megan, what's the reaction there tonight?
Well, Rosie, I can tell you that there is definitely a sense of relief here in the town of Woodstock, but as you can imagine, there is also lingering anger as well. This is a town that really came together to help search for Tori in the days after her disappearance. The people here held vigils, they handed out missing persons posters, and for a long time they kept out hope that Tori would be found alive. Of course, there was more shock when 2 people from this town were arrested and charged with murder. Everyone here will tell you they felt fear in the days, months, and years following Tori's abduction. They've been waiting for this verdict, and tonight it came. For some, it was justice. Others think Michael Rafferty deserves more than what he got.
I think he should hang for what he's done, and he should realize what he's done and pay for his consequences. It's pretty much, I really think you should let him out, let him loose on the street and see what the street has to for him. A lot of people are mad at him.
I know it's been hard on the family, and I wouldn't want to see that on anybody, but I don't know, it seems to me that they got their man. I just hope they got the right man, you know.
Justice was done, yep. But he shouldn't get life sentence. He should be put to death.
People in Woodstock here are a little more cautious now with their children, a little more. It's devastated it a bit in the people themselves here, that a shock of something like that happening.
Now, Tara McDonald's mother, Tori Stafford's grandmother, stopped by where we're set up just a few minutes ago. She wanted to make a statement. She says she's ecstatic. She says that they never had a doubt. Here's a portion of the statement she made to us just a few moments ago.
We're a small family, but mighty. Yeah, it was a relief. And it's all for Tori. Tori's back in our minds, good memories. Yeah, we can keep on going now.
Now, the mayor of Woodstock also said today that Rafferty and McClintock have brought shame to this town. He did say that residents would rise above it. That healing obviously begins right now. Rosie.
So, Megan, an emotional night for the people in Woodstock. A sense of relief that there's been justice for Tori, but they must also be wondering what's next for Michael Rafferty.
Well, with the verdict now in, Michael Rafferty will almost immediately begin serving his sentence. Those with knowledge of the Canadian prison system say he will likely go to Kingston Penitentiary. Here's a look at what's next for Michael Rafferty. It's behind the walls of this prison that Michael Rafferty could end up serving at least the first portion of his sentence. If he is sent to Kingston Penitentiary, he'll join several well-known murderers and rapists, including disgraced former Colonel Russell Williams, the notorious Paul Bernardo, as well as Michael Briere, the man who snatched 10-year-old Holly Jones off a Toronto street, sexually assaulted her, and then tossed her body into Lake Ontario.
Covered.
Before being transferred to a federal prison, Michael Rafferty will have 15 days in provincial custody to clear up any outstanding personal and legal matters. He'll then go through a detailed intake assessment where Corrections Canada will try to identify any immediate mental and physical needs, what factors led to his crimes, and what types of programming should be assigned. The biggest question, though, is one of public safety and security. Corrections Canada says that is what all placement and transfer decisions are based on. They will also have to determine if Rafferty poses a threat to the general prison population or if other inmates are a threat to him, the latter being the most likely, because according to the former warden of Kingston Pen, even in a place filled with people who have committed heinous crimes, those who harm children are considered, quote, the scum of the earth. With a target on his back, Rafferty could end up in segregation, not as a form of further punishment, but for his own safety. If that's the case, his days will likely not be much different to those of Bernardo, who spends much of his time locked up in a tiny prison cell located in an isolated ward of Kingston Pen. The vicious and torturous crimes Bernardo committed against schoolgirls Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French now put his life in danger.
How you doing?
But whether Rafferty goes into segregation or not, like all other inmates in Canada, he will still have a variety of rights and privileges. He'll get at least 1 hour of exercise a day and a shower at least every other day. He'll be able to send and receive mail, read approved books and magazines, watch movies and television, play video games, even have a computer of his own if he wants to buy one. Now, Rafferty, like all other Canadian inmates, could end up earning up to $7 a day minus room and board. That money will go into an inmate trust fund. He'll be able to use that money to purchase things like snacks, treats, clothing, stamps at the prison canteen or approved outside sources. Back to you, Rosie.
CTV's Megan Furman in Woodstock tonight. Thanks, Megan.
You are looking at the scene of a horrific crash, a scene so bad one veteran police officer says he's never witnessed anything like it before. 11 people are confirmed dead in the community of Hampstead. The wreckage, twisted metal, what's left of a passenger van and a tractor trailer. The vehicles collided just before 5 o'clock, sending the van careening into the side of a house. The side of the van completely ripped off, exposing the seats inside. As many as 13 people were believed to be in the van, possibly a group of migrant agricultural workers. Police say there were survivors, 3 who were rushed to hospital. This is where we are in Hampstead, about 30 kilometers west of Waterloo, just northeast of Stratford on Perth County Road 107 at Perth Line 47. Good evening and welcome to a special edition of CTV News at 11:30. We are just steps away from where tragedy unfolded just before 5 o'clock this afternoon, and we will bring you all of what we know. Beginning with CTV's Joel Bowie. Joel, the death toll here is absolutely staggering. What do we know about what's happened?
Only small pieces of it. We know that the heavy truck was moving straight through where we're standing here tonight. It was coming downhill, it was picking up speed. The van was coming the opposite direction. They collided, tumbled over each other, crashing into the house behind us with tragic consequences.
There were 13 people aboard the van, the impact so violent that 10 of them died at the scene. 3 survived.
The investigators are still trying to determine where the people were in the vehicle that survived. We believe the driver is deceased, though.
The driver of the truck that hit them was also killed. It's gruesome even for those prepared for the worst.
I've been on the job for 28 years and I've never seen anything quite like this collision tonight, with 11 people killed in one crash.
The people in the van were migrant workers, employees of a chicken operation. It's not clear where it's based.
I don't know what language they were speaking, though.
The crash happened in a very remote part of Perth County. We've been talking with farmers up and down the rural road here all night tonight. They were all working at the time. Only one person actually reports hearing the crash, but they all say it was very bright and the sun was low in the sky.
The intersection has a stop sign in the direction the van was traveling.
They could have gone through it or they could have stopped and pulled ahead. We have no idea at this point.
The identities of the victims are also unknown. Their bodies lay under tarps, spread out between the 2 vehicles in which they died.
One of those victims is the driver of the truck, and a short time ago, the company that employs him released a statement. It reads, "A Speedy Transport owner-operator, whose name is being respectfully withheld, was involved in a fatal collision in Hampstead, Ontario at approximately 4:45 Eastern Standard Time on February 6, 2012. Per our correspondence with the OPP, a passenger van traveling westbound on Line 47 carrying multiple occupants failed to stop and was struck by our vehicle traveling south on County Road 107. Per the officer, the Speedy Transport driver tried to avoid the passenger van, but was unable to do so, resulting in his own death. Our thoughts and prayers are with our driver's family and the families of the other victims involved in this horrible tragedy. And it is a horrible tragedy, just so many victims here tonight and so many families going to be hurt by this.
Absolutely, Joel. We're also hearing from one person who was one of the first people here at the scene after this happened, who actually heard this crash happen.
Yeah, he was working in a tool shop just a short distance away from here, and he heard the crash and he rushed out. He saw the van that's perched up against the house here, and there were people inside of it. He went around, he was trying to feel their pulses, he wasn't having much success. He says that he heard from the back of the van someone calling, "Help me, help me." He couldn't get to the person he couldn't help. There was just so much destruction and so many bodies there, and all he could say to the person was, "Help is coming, help is coming," and of course it did, but for so many people it was just too late.
Okay, an absolutely horrific scene. We do know that 3 people survived this crash. 2 of them were taken to Stratford General Hospital. CTV's Nadia Matos was there. Nadia, do we know anything about who these victims are?
Well, there isn't a lot of information about the survivors, but OPP did give us some insight. We're told that 2 people were transported to Hamilton General Hospital. One other person was airlifted to Hamilton General Hospital. In all 3 cases, we don't know their conditions. Earlier in the press conference, OPP suggested those involved were most likely working in the area. Multiple sources are reporting that the victims were working in the poultry industry.
We've been told they're migrant workers, but I don't have the details at this point. As I said, they're migrant workers. It is a large van, but I haven't gone down to have a look at any equipment down there.
Now, police say they don't know when they can confirm the identities of those 10 people who died. Their names are not being released until the family has been notified.
All right, thanks very much, Nadia. And Premier Dalton McGuinty also released a statement about this accident tonight. Here's a little bit of what he had to say. In it, he says, on behalf of 13 million Ontarians, I want to offer our deepest condolences to those who lost a loved one and to offer our most sincere prayers for those taken to hospital. He also goes on to thank the first responders who provided compassionate emergency care and who were here first at the scene. Let's bring in CTV's David Emery now. David, so many unanswered questions tonight. We've been talking a little bit about the weather, clear conditions today. What do we know about factors that may have caused this crash?
Yeah, certainly clear conditions here, Megan, and we're told that because of the timing, their sun was setting. It would have been just to the left of the viewpoint of the driver of the van. It's unclear yet, though, as to whether or not weather factors and the sunshine in particular had anything to do with this horrific crash.
Do we know anything about the safety of these vehicles, maybe specifically the people that were inside them? We did hear an OPP officer mention something about seat belts earlier today.
Yes, once again, we don't have too many details about the van. It was a 15-passenger van. Seating for 15, there should be passenger seat belts for 15 passengers. We are told by the OPP officers, by the emergency workers at the scene here, that seat belts had to be cut to free some of the victims of this collision.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about what's next. We're told the coroner is here at the scene. What are police doing and when are they hoping to release the scene?
Well, it's going to be quite some time yet. I'm told that OPP expect this scene to be curtailed to traffic, to be locked down in essence, until at least noon tomorrow. The bodies remain here. The OPP are now trying to notify the next of kin of the victims. I'm told that a few people have been notified, but they are still trying to reach some of the other victims. So it's going to take quite a while yet to clear up the scene here, to conduct the investigation and to reopen this intersection to traffic.
All right, thanks very much, David Emery. So there you have it. 11 people have been killed in this horrific crash. 3 of them have survived. That's it for us here at the scene. Let's send it back to Rosie Del Campo.
After 5 months, the Hurley Five are one again.
I love home.
I think that sort of sums it up, right? We love home.
The determined 13-year-old is working on everything, literally one step at a time. While she has a lot to catch up to with brothers Sam and Ben, she's making huge progress. On the piano, with speech and schoolwork, and all with a stellar attitude about life.
I love school, and I love church, and there's lots of things.
Lydia's birthday is in March, and she knows exactly what she's going to be able to do at 14.
I will be able to go to the bathroom all by myself, and I will be able to have a shower all by myself.
Her family has trouble believing it was just 5 months ago when Lydia was hit by a truck while getting off the school bus. For Dad, James Hurley, this shoe at the crash scene means so much. They were brand new and carefully picked out with Mom Michelle the day before.
I never took them out of my backpack, and eventually they just sort of became this symbol of our last little conversation and that last connection where Lydia was perfectly healthy.
There's a whole community still rallying for a full recovery, and for that, the Hurleys are thankful.
This sense of gratitude for how we've been supported and cared for throughout the long journey.
A long and complex journey, for now summed up best in a simple saying with much more meaning.
There's no place like home.
That's right, there's no place like home.
Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Wilmot.
Darren's here with sports and a special feature on a Laurier football player.
Rosie, we're talking about quarterback Travis Eamon, who's been going through a lot because his mother is sick. And we've got a story tonight that's about family as well as football. As Travis Eamon prepares for his first career start in the OUA, his ailing mother is very much on his mind. The Laurier Golden Hawks quarterback is trying to balance family life with football and school. It's a lot to handle for anyone, but especially a 19-year-old. Earlier this week, Eamon sat down with Lee Boyajian to share his story. Lee joins us live with more. And Lee, this young man really is showing maturity beyond his years.
Through courage and perseverance, Darren, Eman clearly has his priorities straight, and it isn't football first. However, he and his mother didn't always agree on football. She was concerned he would get hurt if he played. But when he found the game in his hometown of Brampton, she wanted him to be happy and agreed to let him take the field.
To see her smile, it's going to mean a lot to me.
Travis Eman admits it's been a long and difficult few years to be away from home while his mother faces health concerns.
Just for her to be like sick and not doing well, it tears my heart up. Couldn't be where I am without her.
The 19-year-old demonstrated natural talent early. He played senior football in grade 10 and moved to the U.S. the following year in hopes of securing a scholarship. He found a home at Furman University in South Carolina.
Anything she says to me, I always listen to it, and I like to say I'm a really good kid, but it's really only because of my mom. You know, she raised me perfectly.
But after leaving Ontario, life changed in more ways than just a new address for Eman. His mother began experiencing complications from a gastro bypass surgery. She has a hole in her stomach. So for 3 years, Eman has split time between his mother's bedside and the field. But this season, as training camp approached, the quarterback made a call. His mother didn't initially support. Eman was coming home.
In the end, I told her, like, there's only one thing that would make me happy and it was being next to her. So she made it a little bit easier on her.
When Eman decided it was time to come back to Ontario, he called a few teams, but in the end, he says the Golden Hawks were the clear choice.
The big emphasis in family here as well, it came along with what I feel, and it's just a perfect fit for me.
Eman says being less than an hour from home has made an immediate impact, but the transition wasn't as smooth as hoped. Laurier needed to appeal a transfer rule. The CIS overturned the rule for compassionate reasons, and Eman officially made a Golden Hawk.
After that, it was just like a sigh of relief, just knowing that, you know, people do have hearts around this world, and they do realize that, you know, some things in life are more important than football, and that's the whole reason why I came home.
Home to a place where Eman can take the field with his mom in his heart and in the stands.
She's going to be out there, she's going to be wearing that purple, and really can't wait to see her.
When Eman steps onto the field on Monday, he says it will be the first time in more than a year that his mother will be able to see him play. An emotional moment he expects for both of them. Darren?
Terrific story, Lee. Thank you very much. And the Golden Hawks will open their season on the road under the lights on Monday. Travis Eman going to hit the field for the first time in the purple and gold. They will take on the Toronto Varsity Blues.
Tonight, Research in Motion under fire.
This board clearly needs to be shaken up.
The BlackBerry maker faces scrutiny from shareholders.
There only seems to be a plan A, so we're trying to see if he's got a plan B or plan C.
But who's willing to give the company another chance?
I'm not going to sell my stock.
Also, an armed takedown in Kitchener.
6 guys piled out with jackets on and rifles and guns.
The arrests and why the investigation is now focused on a recovered shotgun. Plus, a Cambridge auction house closes its doors.
It's unfortunate that they're not really offering any avenues for a solution.
Allegations of fraud and a warning for others.
Guess you really should read the small print, shouldn't you?
CTV News at 6 with Megan Furman.
Good evening. Tempers flared in Waterloo today as Research in Motion made every attempt to paint a promising picture at its annual general meeting. The market didn't buy it though, and shares were sent tumbling. RIM closed the day at $7.44, down over 4.5%. To put things in perspective, at RIM's annual general meeting 2 years ago, RIM stock was worth about $57. In July of last year, when the meeting was held, RIM sat at just under $28. And today, RIM just isn't what it used to be. Well, many in this community are left wondering what the company will be for Waterloo Region. Job losses are coming, but we still don't know how many local employees will be cut. Right before the shareholders meeting, the company offered up a spokesperson, not CEO Torsten Hines, but Frank Bulbin, RIM's new Chief Marketing Officer. He had this to say about job losses in the region.
We are looking at the details right now. We are going to act as soon as possible, and we'll be able to confirm that.
But shareholders were looking for answers on more than just the job front today. CTV's Nicole Lampa was in the meeting. Nicole, they squared off against the company's leadership, but did they get the answers that they were looking for?
Not really, Megan. Many investors left more irritated than when the meeting started. RIM leaders were forced to face shareholders with questions about high salaries and why they let the company sink so far so fast, with the world watching for a response.
We're just about a little over an hour away from the AGM starting.
It was the show Bay Street and Wall Street had their eyes on. RIM shareholders facing the company's new leadership, demanding answers.
There only seems to be a plan A, so we're trying to see if he's got a plan B or plan C.
They were world leaders, and I would like to see them, succeed again.
Only still cameras were allowed inside. Barbara Stemiest, chair of RIM's board of directors, started off the meeting by saying the past year does not represent what RIM can achieve. Then shareholders voted on this list of directors. One shareholder stood in defiance, indicating there wasn't overwhelming approval.
This board clearly needs to be shaken up. She reiterated that they would do so. I'd like to see more results.
Thorsten Heinz then took the podium, saying he's honored to be RIM's CEO, then reiterated he won't release new technology before it's perfect.
Thorsten Heinz sounded sincere and even passionate when talking about the company's financials and the company's future, but most of the emotion came from investors when the floor opened for questions.
Canadian shareholders are usually known to be polite.
This time we actually had one shareholder stand up and ask for a shareholder revolt like we saw at CP, which was huge, and the entire audience applauded after they did that.
We were looking for answers as to whether or not the company would seriously entertain a sale or a breakup. And, not to our surprise, it's more of the same.
A few did leave with optimism.
Anything short-sighted isn't really in the interest of the consumer out there, who's really who I'm pushing for.
I think the company will have better time ahead. I'm pretty sure. I'm not going to sell my stock.
Now many shareholders were left standing at the microphone with unanswered questions. RIM officials shut down the AGM just before noon. Megan?
All right, thanks very much, Nicole. So what's RIM up against going forward? This graphic tells the tale. In the first quarter of this year, only 5% of U.S. smartphone customers purchased a BlackBerry. 43% chose an iPhone, while 48% bought a device running Google's Android operating system. A clear uphill battle. Let's bring in CTV's Frank Lin for more on this. Frank, what do the experts have to say about the company now and its prospects for the near future?
Megan, on the positive side, BlackBerry sales are up in some markets. The company has a lot of money in the bank, billions, and it has some time on its side. But that's not enough to convince some analysts of its prospects.
No surprises here, but for many, disappointment. That's the reaction from analysts to the presentation from the company at the annual general meeting.
Takeaway is nothing's really changed from before the meeting. The company still has huge challenges ahead of it. It's trying to change on the fly.
Some shareholders came away believers. Others can't believe that Research in Motion would put all its eggs in the BlackBerry 10 basket. They both agree that time is running out.
This analyst says the hope is that BlackBerry 10 can be, if not a big seller, then the operating system for all smart devices.
That is an unchallenged market. That's a much more attractive market for any shareholder who's holding on to RIM now. Why try to beat your head against trying to compete against Apple and Android when you can go into some greenfield territory and own it?
Others weren't encouraged for the future after the board of directors election.
Unlike Thorsten, who has totally revamped the management team, there's still too many vestiges of the old guard on that board of directors.
This tech leader is impressed with RIM's new focus.
A smaller, leaner company, much more focused on very specific market opportunities, decreasing the number of devices that are in market that will create operational efficiencies.
The next measure of RIM's progress will come in the second quarter results later this summer.
One thing we know for sure about RIM's future tonight, there is one less jet in the corporate fleet. The company confirmed this afternoon it sold one of its 3 jets. It was valued at about $6 million. The company is trying to save $1 billion. Megan.
All right, thanks, Frank. Good evening. They came here to earn money for a better life for themselves and their families. Now, 10 migrant farm workers from Latin America are dead, killed in one of the worst car crashes in the province's history. This was the scene just moments ago in the hamlet of Hampstead. A makeshift memorial is rising at the site of yesterday's crash. Family members went to the scene to lay flowers, say prayers, and shed tears. By stark contrast, this was the scene last night and early this morning as body after body was taken away. The workers were in a van that collided with a truck on a county road near Stratford just before 5 p.m. The side of the van was completely sheared off, the vehicles sent careening off the road and into a house. Amazingly, 3 people inside the van did survive, a fact described by police as a miracle. But the driver of the truck was also killed, putting the total number of dead at 11. Now, you may not have heard of Hampstead. It's a tiny community in the county of Perth East, about 30 kilometers west of Waterloo and northeast of Stratford. There are so many victims of this tragedy, it's hard to comprehend. The impact felt in Peru, where many of the men were from, and in Kitchener, where we've learned they lived and prayed. We're beginning tonight with their stories. CTV's Joel Bowie leads our coverage. Joel.
Megan, those pictures we showed last night while standing on that road left people in awe of the sheer destruction. The picture we are going to show tonight is different, and it will break your heart. This quiet apartment building in the city's south end is where 10 of the victims lived. All of them members of the same extended family.
I'll miss them. I'll miss them dearly.
Melissa and Roberto Balseda are beside themselves with grief.
You just wait.
I can't sleep. It's very hard.
They say 5 of those in the van arrived just last week. This picture was taken at the airport. 2 of the men here are among the survivors, along with another who was airlifted to Hamilton.
He's on life support. We don't know what his outcome is going to be.
The men were working as part of a chicken operation that moved from farm to farm. The money they made was sent home to help their families in Peru.
What are they left with? Nothing. They don't have a husband going home to them. You know? Those kids don't have their dad no more. It kills me. It really does.
They're nice, like a quiet, like, you know, they don't make like make a lot of noise, and just nice people. Like
Letty Alfaro saw the men on Saturday when they made their weekly stop at her store for lunch.
We're still in shock, like I say, how come the whole group died?
Chris is going to be missed. Yeah.
In London, neighbors remember the man who was driving the other truck, 38-year-old Chris Fulton. He'd been in the trucking business for several years.
I had watched the news and I said to the wife, I hope it's not what I'm thinking, but it was.
Flags at the Brampton-based company where he worked flew at half-mast today. Police haven't determined what caused the crash, but the Balsedas can't believe the driver of the van was at fault.
Of course, you know, I know that van. I know the driver.
I sit in his back when he's driving.
Roberto works for the same company, does the same job, and would have had the same fate had he not been scheduled to work the night shift. Police are planning a news conference for tomorrow where we hope to learn more information. Megan.
All right, thanks very much, Joel. A number of the victims attended the same church in Kitchener. That church is the New Jerusalem Baptist Church located on Glasgow Street. Moments ago, the pastor spoke to CTV News. He told us one of the victims, Juan Castillo, has been a member of the church for 13 years.
We were very close with Juan, you know. We sometimes after this sermon or I come out of the pulpit, you know, we kind of play together, you know, and play some jokes. So he was very close and so many years in the church, so, you know, you're getting attached to people.
The pastor says they're in the process of organizing a memorial service and setting up a bank account for those who would like to help Castillo's family with funeral costs. And while a sense of loss lingers in southwestern Ontario, many are mourning around the world. As CTV's Rosie Del Campo tells us, this story is garnering international attention. Rosie.
Megan, this crash wasn't just one of the worst in this province's history. It killed 10 people from Peru. So several media organizations in Peru have posted pictures and information on their websites. Some are reporting that 48-year-old Enrique Leon was killed. It's reported Leon worked in the province since October 2009 and worked for Brian Poultry. A reporter with one of Peru's main newspapers tells us it's been getting a lot of calls from victims' family members wanting to learn more about what's happened and who was involved.
The situation here in Peru, there are many reports in the media, newspapers, channels, the radios are covering this news, but we don't have more information.
Now, the Peruvian consulate has been working with the coroner to identify those killed, but again, provincial police have not confirmed any names yet. Megan.
All right, thanks, Rosie. And the workers were part of a crew traveling across southwestern Ontario doing specialized work in poultry barns. CTV's David Imrie is at the farm where the crew spent their day yesterday. David.
Megan, there were 16 workers here in total. They were vaccinating chickens against disease. The poultry workers had spent the day working in the barns on this farm. Albert Berger says they were a good crew.
Oh yeah, they're always very, very happy, and they must love what they're doing, and they're hard workers, and what can I say?
The crash happened just down the road from the farm, minutes after the workers had packed up their belongings.
So when you realized that, what was that like for you?
Oh, that's a bad feeling, because you know they were all happy. They all shook my hands when they left, and you know, and I told them I'll see you next week.
Police haven't said who the poultry crew was working for, but it's believed they may have been associated with this Bruce County firm. One of the largest poultry service firms in the province is Brian's of Mildmay. They are not commenting on this tragedy.
Still nothing at this time.
These were valued workers on this farm, some with a long work record here.
Some guys been here, I bet I've seen them for 10 or 12 years already, like 2 or 3 guys, always the same. And I think they get new workers from South America every year, and they train them, and they work here for a number of years and then go back to the families.
The workers were expected back here next week to help to move the chickens to another barn. Albert Berger says that he's really sorry that they won't be back. Megan?
All right, thanks very much, David. Well, attention is now focused on what caused this terrible tragedy, and police have been working around the clock. CTV's Art Beaumonk has that story for us tonight. Art, an extensive investigation is underway.
Exactly right, Megan. Investigators have a good idea of how it happened. The big question now is why.
The scene much different today. The wreckage gone. Crews picking up what's left of the debris from the 2 vehicles. Traffic moving again through Hempstead. Satellite trucks on the side of the road. Police telling us what they believe happened.
We have a vehicle pulling out from a side road, which is a township road, crossing a county road. The township road is controlled by 2 stop signs on either side of the intersection. And of course we have a vehicle that's going westbound crossing and basically not yielding to the traffic on the main highway.
Police tell us the roads were clear and dry. Local residents say that the bright sun wouldn't have been directly in the path of the van.
Now, police say the van was heading west down this side road, and there's the stop sign at the intersection. There's also this sign warning about a stop ahead.
And the intersection doesn't have a history of being a trouble spot.
This particular intersection hasn't been a problematic one. There's not an overabundance of traffic. A couple of intersections south of here, in Amalri, we've had some major horrendous crashes.
But now there's been one just north of that's claimed 11 lives.
Now, also part of the police investigation will be a careful inspection of the 2 vehicles, like the brakes on the van, for instance, as they try to answer the question of why it happened. Megan?
All right, thanks, Art. Well, the investigations aren't complete. The calls for better protection for migrant workers are already mounting. CTV's Frank Lynn has been looking into that and joins us with the details. Frank.
Megan, if you haven't traveled in rural southwestern Ontario or southern BC, you may never have seen migrant farm workers, but they are here in significant numbers and they do work we all depend on.
The 10 migrant workers killed in the Hampstead crash are among an estimated 40,000 who come to Ontario each year from Mexico, Jamaica, Peru, Central America, and even Thailand, according to the Agricultural Alliance. Across the country, there are over 250,000 migrant farm workers. They work in conditions the Alliance calls dangerous, deadly, and dirty, doing jobs most Canadians won't.
They go into large barns with thousands of chickens and catch them, inoculate them, and get them ready to go to the poultry operations for the chicken that we eat every day.
An advocate for migrant workers says he doesn't know the circumstances of the workers in Hampstead, but generally speaking, he says migrant workers lack protection under labor laws.
Our concerns is this, that migrant workers who are tied to an employer cannot exert rights. There's always a fear of deportation.
Ramsarup says too often temporary farm workers are packed into vans with dubious safety records and not enough seat belts.
In New Brunswick today, the mothers of 2 boys killed in the crash of a similar van 4 years ago called the vans a death trap and demanded they be outlawed.
The boys were among 7 team members from a New Brunswick high school basketball team who, along with the coach's wife, died when the 15-seater van went out of control and slammed into a truck on an icy road. The impact tore the van open, throwing the passengers onto the road. The author of a soon-to-be-released study on migrant workers says all levels of government have to address the lack of support for migrant workers.
Particularly since a significant proportion, albeit the majority of agricultural migrant workers come to Canada repeatedly year after year for an average of 9 to 10 years.
Now, the advocates for the migrant workers and van safety admit they don't know all the details of what happened yesterday, but they want attention brought to the general issues surrounding their causes. Megan.
So, Frank, what about the survivors? Are they covered by Ontario's health insurance?
Well, Health Minister Deb Matthews says they are, provided they filled out their paperwork properly. Megan?
All right, thanks, Frank. Meantime, in Ottawa, Federal Immigration Minister Jason Kenney expressed his condolences and reacted to questions about migrant transportation safety and working conditions as he made his way into question period.
I don't know the situation except to express obviously profound condolences to the family members and loved ones of those who were killed in this terrible auto accident, and I'm sure that the responsible authorities, the Ontario Ministry of Transport and the local police, will be doing a full investigation to see what can be learned from it, and certainly would be interested to see anything that comes out of that.
And this will go down as one of the worst road crashes in Canadian history. The deadliest happened in October 1997 when 43 people were killed near Quebec City. A tour bus of seniors lost control at a sharp turn and plunged down a 20-meter embankment. Only 7 people on board survived. Also among the worst, a huge pileup that happened in September 1999. 8 people died in a fiery collision near Windsor that involved 87 vehicles. Heavy fog was blamed. And another horrific crash near Shakespeare took place in September 1993. 6 young people died when their car hit a CN passenger train. Well, not to be forgotten in this tragedy are the first responders. Emergency crews are trained for the grim task of attending to serious accidents, but no one in Perth County expected they'd ever see a crash of this magnitude. CTV's Nicole Lampa rejoins the news team tonight. She's live at the fire station in Shakespeare. Nicole, how are firefighters and community members coping with this?
Well, Megan, Township of Perth East is rallying together in light of this. Stress management teams are in place for everyone in the community.
Fire crews raced to the scene and never expected to find such devastation.
It's certainly something that no one ever expects to see something that much carnage. It was definitely a terrible scene. I've never seen that much damage in a motor vehicle collision before.
With 11 dead bodies and twisted metal, community leaders were concerned how they would handle it.
It's something that's going to be with these folks for a long time, and we are going to be continually monitoring the state of their emotional health, and so we will do whatever we can help for these people to get through this tremendous, terrific incident.
After the first alarm, volunteer firefighters dropped everything to get to the Shakespeare Fire Station. They then zipped 10 kilometers north on Perth Road 107 to the scene, all within 10 minutes. Over a span of 11 hours, 19 volunteer firefighters plus EMS personnel from Perth County and OPP stayed on site to deal with the tragedy. It's a sight that will haunt many for some time.
Firefighters are pretty tight-knit group of people, so they will deal with it amongst themselves. But we do bring in the experts to help them. They've seen a lot, and we're going to do our best to help them through this. Everybody copes in a different manner, so it's not a one-size-fits-all fix after seeing something like that.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, stress management teams are in place for emergency crews who are dealing with the emotional trauma, but they are also available to anyone who has been affected by this tragedy. More information from Victim Services of Perth County can be found on our website. Megan.
All right, thanks very much, Nicole.